over at the Idaho Statesman, idahostatesman.com. There's a little article talking about how Idaho's businesses are embracing and how the need and the just overall business activity is growing in terms of preparation and for preppers and for people who have prepared mindsets. And so businesses are growing and thriving in this industry of preparation. And so the article goes on to say that survival experts do recognize that Idaho is probably one of the most prepared and the most well-stocked of all the states in the Union here in the United States. And you do read about this, and that's why I wanted to comment, because you do hear a lot of things like, hey, survival land in Idaho. And you kind of wonder, like, really? Like, what's so great out there? Well, there's a lot of shielding, like natural shielding with the mountains and various areas and lowlands that actually protect you against radiation or prevailing nuclear winds that could be in that area if it was being blown in that area. There's also lots of people, groups, especially like the Mormons and so forth, that are more prepared-minded people. And so anyways, there's just a lot of that lifestyle of being prepared and having things as contingencies. And so it's just an interesting little article. It was a reprint. Most of it was a reprint from a 2013 article, but they reprinted part of it for another part of another story. And I just saw that in the Idaho Statesman. So might want to check that out, or at least, just kind of be aware that certain states in the Union here in the United States are just more prepared. They just have certain types of mindset of people. Just like if you went to New York, for example, not out in the suburbs or out in the county, I'm talking about like New York City. And I'm not saying there aren't, what you call urban preppers. Sure, I'm sure there are. But I would say the vast majority, over probably 85 to 90% of them easily, could not last more than probably 5 to 7 days max, total max. And so I just feel like, when you make comparisons like that, New York City, to compared to the average household in Idaho, I think that there would be a dramatic difference in capability and knowledge, and of course in actual physical resources. So this is just kind of a real quick lesson that we need to be mindful of where we put ourselves and our family, and what we consider normal and safe, because there's a wide girth of what people would choose, or what the opinion would be to consider yourself in a safer area or not. Some people just think, well, if I have a high population of police officers in my area, and law enforcement is present, because in New York there's a lot of police officers, but there's also a lot of people, then people say, well, I'm safe. Just like I know someone that lives in Washington, D.C. Good Lord, I could never live there. That's so tyrannical. It's just like you're not even free at all. You don't have all your civil liberties. It's very restricted there, and I would never live there. But this particular individual, though, they like it there, and they said they feel safe because there's law enforcement everywhere. Of course, there's law enforcement everywhere. Look at what's in Washington, D.C. And so their mindset is that they feel safe because of the outward, capabilities of the city outside of their control. But they don't even look at what about their means to control their own destiny, or whatever their options are, or what are their capabilities personally, and not being reliant on others. And this is the mindset we have to get across. People who live in an urban area don't get that most of the time. They're just so reliant on the public service network or the infrastructure or the safeguards of that city that they always expected that it's going to be there. And it's not always going to be true. In most cases, it never comes true. There's so many examples. Look at Katrina. Katrina down there in New Orleans was just wiped out. There was just no capability whatsoever, Heck, even police officers just abandoned their post and went to save their family. And I think I'd probably do the same thing. And then they were put down as like, oh, you garbage, you didn't protect the community. But for one, they were being shot at by snipers. Number two, they were totally overwhelmed, and they had to help their own family. And so what do you do? So I think that, you can't be too critical with those police officers. Of course, there was a lot of very deviant things that went on. Police officers going to homes and confiscating their firearms. which is totally unacceptable. And I think that might have happened just right after police officers were being fired upon. But that just because people are doing things that are evil and wrong doesn't mean that everybody has to surrender their civil liberties, and the Constitution doesn't matter. So there's a lot of things you have to be very careful about these situations, no matter where you live. But I would imagine those certain places are much more apt to yield a better result, especially if you're living in a culture like in Idaho or various parts of Idaho that are very prepared-minded, and people have 1 or 2 years of food set back as a standard. Plus, they have gardens. Plus, they might have alternative means of fuel and alternative means of energy. That's going to have much better capabilities and give you better results long term, and the likelihood of you perishing because you're going without is going to be minimal compared to maybe living in an apartment and you can only store whatever you can store in your apartment, which is not going to be that much because the apartments typically are very small because they cost a lot of money. So anyways, I just wanted to put that out there, that story has been republished. And it's, sometimes it's kind of cool to go on Google and go in the actual news link and just type in prepping or prepper or survivalist or just various keywords, and you'll see things pop up a lot of times. I'm like, what? Unfortunately, there's a lot of negative things that the media likes to put in there. And we'll talk about that on Commentary Sunday. I have a whole list of ways that the media likes to manipulate and kind of put a certain, a whole bunch of labels actually, various labels on preppers and survivalists to demonize that culture because, preparation is still not socially acceptable.